Good morning everyone. Today we are going to be writing some more information about another illustration in our story. Okay then, last time we looked at Mr. Brownstone's books and he was just about to tell us exactly what we could find within them. And firstly it says Eleanor Brownstone's discovery of the Crystal Kingdom and her subsequent death-defying escape. So these are one of the ancestors of Mr. Brownstone. We have Eleanor Brownstone here and some very creepy looking creatures. My great-great-grandfather Eric Brownstone's epic battle with the 100-headed snake, king of Tuckanuk Island. Interesting. But before all that, there was the first adventure a Brownstone ever had. This is the tale of Arthur, the unlikeliest of heroes. And here's Mr. Brownstone sat in his library. Some very interesting things going on here. And then it goes on to show an illustration. Now there is some text up here, but I'm not going to show you what the text says first of all. We have a really lovely illustration of a little town down here. Now this is what I would describe as a coastal town because it's so close to the coast, and the coast just being the bit where the earth and land meets the sea. Okay, and we've got it's a really beautiful illustration. I'll try and zoom in and get as much detail for you as possible. We've got some little boats here in the foreground. Lots of big rocks, a lighthouse, a nice glowing lighthouse. I suppose that shows the ships where to go and where to avoid the big rocks. We have a nice little settlement here, a place where people live. It looks like a church tower. There's an enormous fire in the front here. There's some smoke rising from some chimneys. Very interesting. So this is where clearly lots of people are living. Looks like quite a dangerous place to live because doesn't look like there's many roads out of here because there's such an enormous mountain to the right. If you can see up here, don't want to go too high, they give it away. So it doesn't look like there's a way to get in apart from by boat. So maybe people here eat a lot of fish, or they get a lot of their food from transport by boats. Otherwise, it must be quite difficult for them to get to see places or to go to places other than by boat. Okay, so it might be quite a lonely place to live or quite a cold place to live, and they might not see many people other than those that live in the town. What other clues can we find? Well, there's lots of snow. There's some broken trees here. Looks like someone's house just up here, like a little hut. I have no idea what this is. I don't know if it's meant to be a bird or some sort of dragon. I'm not very sure. But there seems to be maybe a watchtower up here. Okay, it's interesting. And it looks like a starry night. Okay, so there's not any light pollution here. There's no clouds. So I wonder where this place could be. Right then, today's learning objective, again, we are developing narrative, but this time by creating settings, characters and plot. And your task today will be to predict and describe a setting based on an illustration. This is your illustration that you're focusing on, so this is the page we're looking at in particular. And it's going to ask you to write a plausible prediction about the location of the illustration. Where in the world do you think this could be? Okay, and I'll give you a clue. It is in the world. Okay, it's not a made-up place, this one, all this time. This is a real place. So where do you predict the place will be? And that'll be one paragraph, maybe. Okay, and it says, after that, you're going to be describing the setting. So an expanded noun phrase, warm, yellow, and gentle glow. That might be something to describe the fire with. A prepositional phrase, for example, behind the church, you can see ... Prepositional phrase, remember a preposition tells you where something is, so the preposition in this sentence would be behind. Okay, and to see, that's your your sort of bonus success criteria here. If you want an extra challenge, an OUS suffix. So one of your adjectives to have an OUS suffix at the end of it. Okay, so using this picture here, I'm going to shrink it down just for the convenience so that you can all see, but I will keep referring back to it. Okay, here is my picture. I need to write prediction. So first of all, it's probably very important that I use the word predict, isn't it, in the first sentence. So I'm going to say, I predict that this detailed illustration, okay, I'm describing the illustration. I'm not just going to say illustration or drawing. I'm going to call it detailed because it is very detailed. It's showing a lot of things in here. There's loads of clues in there. So I'm calling it a detailed illustration. It's from a small coastal town in the northern hemisphere. Okay, so remember that word again, coastal, like I told you before, just means it is a place, a settlement, town, village next to the sea, right next to the sea. Okay, so they probably, as I said before, get a lot of their things by boats. Loads of clues. What do I mean by the northern hemisphere? Well, I'm going to jump onto Google Maps to show you that quickly. So looking at Google Maps, the northern hemisphere is anywhere above the equator, which curves around here in Africa. So if we look at the map here, I think it's anything above that. I mean, you can still have cold places in the southern hemisphere, so it could be somewhere in the southern hemisphere, a country down there. But I think it might be somewhere up here that it looks quite cold. Maybe one of these areas right at the top in the Arctic Circle. Okay, I can actually see on the map exactly where it is, but I'm not going to give it all away to you. But perhaps, yeah, perhaps it might be in the north, because in the north we know, moving up towards the North Pole up here in this Arctic Circle, things are very cold. So if I was you, I'd pick a country or a place that you know is known for being very cold, because you might get the answer correct there. Next then, we are going to justify our reason. So this is because, comma, I can see enormous mountains with snow-covered peaks. The snow, oops, daisy, is fluffy and as white as clouds, which makes me think that the town must be extremely cold! Exclamation mark. I wonder if, new paragraph, the inhabitants of the settlement, now remember, settlement is just a place where people live. I just don't want to keep saying town or village. I want to just vary it a little bit. Okay, the inhabitants of the settlement gather around the large fire to keep warm and cozy during the winter. Okay, because if we look here, there's an enormous fire, isn't there? Can I zoom in a little bit? Yes, I can. There's an enormous fire here, and it is massive. It's almost the size of the buildings. So I wonder why there's a fire. Maybe it is to keep the people warm, so they have to put heating on in the houses. Not sure. Interesting though, isn't it? Maybe that's the thing that's melted all the snow off this side of the mountain. I've got no idea. Okay. Now what I don't want, okay, let me show you what I do not want. I don't want, I can see a mountain, full stop. I can see a lighthouse. It is a big lighthouse. Okay. I don't want short sentences without any description. Okay, this is the number one thing I think we need to work on as an entire class is our describing. Okay, there's nothing wrong with big, but as a year 4, I'm expecting you to be able to use better words than just big. Okay, you need to expand your vocabularies more than something just like big. So really try to find some synonyms for big. Enormous, large, gigantic. Okay, but remember, not everything can just be described as big. Okay, so if you're going to think about the lighthouse, perhaps what could you describe that you can actually see? Maybe you could describe that warm glow that you can see coming from the lighthouse. What else can you see? You can see there's little holes. Think about maybe something in life or that you've seen that also has little holes in it, okay, that you can use as a simile. Don't just say I can see a big lighthouse. Well, it's not necessarily just a big lighthouse, it's probably a normal sized lighthouse, but think what is unique about this lighthouse. It's perched, look, it's perched on some rocks in the middle of a large storm. Think also, if you really want to develop your writing today, perhaps what the weather conditions are like. If you look at the sea, it seems quite frothy over here, probably because there's quite a strong current. Okay, and because there's a lighthouse, again, you're using your detective work. Because there's a lighthouse, maybe there's lots of shipwrecks down here because of all the crashes that have happened due to the rocks being here. Okay, use the evidence that you have. So think about the weather conditions. Is it cold? Is it warm? Is there a strong wind? Okay, so if you start writing like that, you're really going to develop your work and become an outstanding writer. Okay, so I don't want to see, I can see a mountain, I can see a lighthouse, I can see a house. Lots of descriptive writing, but go beyond just description. Try and infer like you would in a Vipers lesson. Okay, that's everything for today, guys. Thank you so much, and I'm really looking forward to seeing your work.